All right, well, welcome back. Carrie Nikolai with Coldwell Siewert Realtors. And today I have exchanged Ben for a new surprise guest. So today I am very happy to introduce our Honorable Mayor, Zach
Hello.
Vruwink of Wisconsin Rapids.
Thanks for having
And
me.
this is really great. We've been trying to get you down here in the basement and just kind of talk about things that are going on in Wisconsin Rapids.
They are.
And we figured you are the number one person who knows what's going on in town.
Sure.
So
That's probably, good guess. Probably a good
right.
guess. That's probably right on.
I really would hope you know what's going on.
Yeah, right.
So we came up with 4 really great topics that we're going to talk about. We're going to break, some of this all up later on. So our first topic we're going to talk about today is the water park, the Great Aquatic Center. Now, do we have like an official name for it yet, or are we still working on an official name?
That's a great question. Much like I think the Wisconsin Rapids area with its parts and pieces is somewhat struggling with an identity crisis sometimes, right? When you've got sub-municipalities and such. But the Aquatic Center itself, it's much more of a recreational center than it is just a pool or a water park. I know amongst kids, it looks like a water park because they see slides. Amongst us planners and from the city, it's a recreational center. So an official name has not been settled for the facility. We've been working with donors on naming aspects of the facility.
Okay.
So at this point, it's looking like it's going to be the Wisconsin Rapids Recreational Center or Wisconsin Rapids Aquatic Center is probably the more likely name.
Now, there's some really good key kind of takeaways on this water park. We keep calling it a water park,
Yeah.
but we do have a rentable facility that's attached to this. So when it's my turn to have the Christmas here at the house and I now can't fit the 20 people in my home, I can now rent out that facility and have Christmas over there at that place. We'd have plenty of parking.
Right.
Is there going to be like a small kitchenette for people to use? Kind of what does that rentable space
Sure.
kind of entail?
Well, you really touched on a really important point that if the city was going to make an investment such as this scale, it needed to serve a variety of users with a lot of different benefits when it comes to just beyond swimming, right? And so you mentioned the reservable rental shelter, the community room, I guess is somewhat what we're calling it now. It's actually a room that scale is about 100 at capacity, and that can also be broken in half. So we can split up into 2 user groups at a particular time. There will also be provisions for people to bring in Nescos and other type of kitchen materials. And then there's also going to be a small kitchenette for some of the cleaning up after a community.
So we're not
gathering
going to be able to
event.
make the dinner there. We would just
There
have
will
to
not
bring
be a
it.
full commercial kitchen, right,
Okay.
for private use. Now there is adjacent concessions, but that's generally for the purposes of producing the concessions.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
All right.
But we're really excited about the meeting room because a lot of city facilities over the course of summer are occupied. So whether it's Helen's Zoo House over at the zoo, Robinson Park, many of those facilities, while they're not for season, they're generally occupied in the summer months. And so this facility, because again, we were going to make the investment in the bathhouse building, what could we construct adjacent to it that might serve another community need? And reservable shelter space is certainly one of those needs that continues to rise to the top.
And the really great thing is this water facility is really looking at that birth to 90 plus years old. I'm going to say 90 plus years old because we've got a 0 entry walk in. So that way you can get those infants getting used to being in the water. And then also you're looking at I'm going to call them the 40 plus year olds, which is I am part of. But you're looking at the aspects of health and wellness yet too.
Yeah.
So you do have an opportunity where that has the lazy river. If we walked it backwards, you have that resistance training where you can have those nice small areas where you can actually have some fitness yet too on top of it. So if you didn't want to do a lap swim, but you wanted to have something else, there are other opportunities within this water facility to partake.
That's right.
For all age groups. And I think a lot of that, it was mentioned this morning with Sunrise Rotary,
Okay.
that we're missing that. We're missing that. It's for all ages. It's not just for the youth. It's great that the Youth Mayor's Council is involved. They put out this really cute little video.
Right.
But a lot of people think, oh, it's just for the youth in our city. But the city did a great job of looking at, no, it's going to be for everyone.
That's
I
right.
want to reach my 65-year-old grandma. I want her to have an opportunity to go and do something and be able to use that facility as well.
Yeah, without question. And I think when the program guide is officially released, people will be able to see how we truly are serving all generations with the pool facility. we wouldn't be doing our community a justice. We wouldn't be doing a justice to taxpayers who are the primary investor at this point, a justice if we didn't think about everyone in our community. And I think, our community has a long history of serving all residents. We've got a great senior center focused on our most elderly in our community that need a place to go, to recreate and to socialize. And we knew that if we were going to build an aquatic center, we couldn't just serve the narrow summer months, though we love our summers and we live
do
for our summers, right? Even on a cold, rainy, snowy winter day like today, that we have to serve all seasons and all users, all ages. So you highlighted one of the pool vessels is the zero depth entry. There are 2 tot slides in there, so building some tolerance and some experience for those parents or guardians that are looking to build some water safety skills and get kids or really young people experienced and trusting to be in the water. There's also a splash and spray area, so not all that different than the splash pad on the west side near Mead Field, that we're going to have some of those spray features in there. So there are 2 tot slides, zero depth entry, and there's also another unique feature in that pool, the small kiddie pool, and that is a tot lazy river. It'd be the first of its kind in a municipal facility where parents can take kids through kind of a winding discovery lazy river. So it's kind of fun.
That's going to be really
cool.
It's
obviously really shallow, but it'll serve all residents at that particular age group. And then, as you mentioned, you get into the second pool, which is, and I'll mention why we separated or segregated the pools, is when you have one tank pool, as we've been accustomed to in our city's past, if there was a fecal incident or a cut, an open wound, we had to shut the pool down.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to have to get evacuated out of the pool when they're having a fun summer day, because again, you don't have many of those throughout the summer. So we wanted to segregate the play and the users, so that way, if we had to shut a pool down, we could just shut the one down, and then we don't have to staff that. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility with that,
which is really good. So if it's a
is.
slow day, not that hot out, we can close one, but still have a couple of them still open.
That's right.
Which is really great. I mean, that's really a lot of forward thinking of, instead of just looking at the here and now, but what if.
That's right.
You look at the what if and go, okay, we're going to plan for the what if.
Yep. And that's why, I think I'll give credit to the great amount of thinkers that have been involved in the project thus far. The city isn't doing this and building this alone, right? We're using some very skilled pool designers as well as park and recreational designers. They just recently, the project that's most similar to this is the pool that Appleton constructed, the Herb family pool. So if residents have been there or visited Appleton, very similar pool. And so we took a lot of the lessons learned and the best practices that they had experienced and incorporated it into the design of our own pool, staffing being one of them, right? As you mentioned, if we decide to shut down a kiddie pool or maybe only open it certain parts of the day, we don't need to staff a lifeguard there at that pool the entire time. So there's some efficiencies that can be gained out of the design process. The other pool that's really excited, and you talked about the lazy river in the main pool. It's a little deeper than most traditional lazy rivers, and that'll serve the water walking users. So if seniors or adults want to do a water walk against the current, we can do that and open the pool a little earlier without having to open it or have it open during regular business hours, because you're going to be competing against kids running around and all the energy that they have to burn off. There'll be some basketball hoops in that pool as well.
And there's a rock climbing wall in that
There
pool
is.
as well?
Well, that's the third pool.
Oh, that's the third pool. Okay.
Yep. So that'll be the deeper pool. That'll be a little bit narrower than a lap pool, but it'll offer some lap swim as well as a diving well, the rock climbing wall, which will be very unique to a pool facility where people can climb up the wall and then fall off back into the pool. And then there's also a mini zip line. It doesn't take people across the pool, but it takes people out into the pool. So it's another attractive feature. So that way, as time goes on, people don't get bored with the features of just a simple tank style pool.
And if I remember right, all these features can be interacted with what's over at the Mead splash pad. So we can take everything from that splash pad and switch it up with the kiddie pool. With the kiddie pool.
Yep.
And on the outside of the pool, we've got some fun things going on over there. We'll hit on that one.
Yeah.
But we have, the nice thing is it is all interchangeable. Now, have we really talked with the other municipalities to find out, like, I know Rome has a splash pad. Is there a way to share some of that stuff? So that way maybe we share with Rome, we get Rome stuff, and we keep it for a month, and the next month we get our stuff back, and maybe share with Nakusa. I know that they have a splash pad as well.
Yep.
Is there talk of that, of kind of sharing it just to kind of keep things fresh?
There had been talk about it early on, and because all of our splash pads are new, we haven't talked about interchanging them yet, just because I think people haven't grown tired of the features that are in each, and I'm not certain of the design elements of how different they are, but I would imagine there are some similarities. But yeah, that's definitely an option. We know certainly between the splash pad and the pool that was a priority, that they could be interchanged as time goes on.
Okay. Okay, so the outside.
Yeah.
So the outside of the pool area is really unique, and I think this is really awesome. We have it set up where there is a splash pad at that location.
Yep.
But then also we're going to talk about the winter months because we said that this is open year round.
Right.
So year round means that wintertime, we're just getting out of winter. Cross my fingers.
Yeah, let's hope.
Usually, the 17th of March is where my line in the sand is. So we're getting close to that point.
Your patience is thin.
Yeah, my patience is thin. But we're looking at, we've got a couple hockey. Now, hockey is starting to become really popular here in the Rapids area with the River Kings and with the youth hockey.
Right.
So there's going to be a little bit of the hockey rink that's going to be going on. We have a low board. Now, I'm not exactly sure what a low board is, so you might need to explain that one to me.
Yeah. Well, so you're familiar with the hockey that's played at the rink, the ice rink, and that is generally a high board situation where you've got, higher boards for the perimeter of the facility, and a low board hockey is a little less aggressive. It's meant to be a bit more of a leisure activity versus a competitive game. Not that you can't play.
We can't check on these boards.
Well,
I take it.
I can't
or
say that. I'm not sure how aggressive. If I'm playing, I don't particularly like to be smashed around too much playing hockey, but folks that want to do that stuff can. But yeah, it's meant to be more of a recreational leisure facility. Not all that different than what's at Robinson Park today.
Okay.
So we wanted to get those activities co-located again. So there will be, in addition to the hockey, there's also the leisure skating. So there are two segregated areas, knowing that hockey users, as you mentioned, a little more aggressive, that the actual leisure skaters, not figure skaters, but the recreational skaters.
I just want to go out and just kind of skate
skate
here
for
and
an
there.
hour and rent some skates and get a cup of hot chocolate and just be outdoors and be active. Yeah, those users are very different. So we wanted to separate them, but yet keep those facilities in a similar facility.
Okay, so you mentioned rent skates. So I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit about this. So if I'm cleaning out my basement and I find out that I have 5 pairs of hockey skates or I have 5 pairs of regular skates that I'm no longer using, is this something that I could donate to the city and that they can just put into the rentable area, so that way you do have that? Or
yeah, we do have an inventory today.
Okay, well,
because
that's good.
we previously had leisure ice skating at the park there, but we also moved it over to Mead Field this year, and we've had actually 2 facilities over time. So we've had skate rental in the cities past, and we plan to continue to operate it, knowing that not everybody owns skates, right? And that's a big barrier for folks to make an investment into ice skates that you may or may not use all that often through the winter. So whether it's the city, I'm not sure, depending on the inventory that we have, or I'd say the ice rink, people are always looking to pick up skating and to try it for the first time, and they may not want to make that initial investment. So I think between us or them, you may want to pick up the phone and see if we'll take those off your hands.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I have to do a little bit of cleaning out of the
Right.
basement.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I want to mention too, related to the winter use, when you mentioned that year-round aspect, the admissions area, so where folks will enter to use the pool, is the same area that folks will use as winter warming.
Okay.
So it'll have a rubberized floor, so it's protective of skates, and that'll be the area. There's a restroom in there, so for folks that want to rent skates or warm up, that'll be also dual purpose as it relates
And
to
again,
the building.
just that pre-planning, most of the time, back in the day, they would plan it, well, here's our winter house and here's our summer house. Being able to put those two houses together, so that way we're building one structure, we're saving the money, and we're able to use it year round.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's trying to stretch that public investment further without having to duplicate our efforts. Same goes for the multipurpose room. When you talked about maybe a holiday gathering or something, it'll be available year round, is my understanding. I don't think there's going to be a period where we're going to close it, because we're going to have to keep the place plowed and things year round. And then the concession area has the ability to be open for some time beyond just the actual summer months or the park months, which is also exciting.
So when are we looking at opening? So when is our projected opening date? Do we have one?
Yeah. The contract that we have with our contractor, the builder, is June 3rd.
Okay.
That's when they'll turn the keys over to us. And so depending upon how late winter lingers, because the 2 items that didn't get done last fall were curb and gutter and asphalt for the parking lots. So provided that those things get get done in fairly short order, come April or May, we should be in line to take the keys on June 3rd or soon thereafter. We're also scheduling a pool certification course for, I believe, the 6th of June. So it's likely that all of our staff will be fully certified. Those that are coming back from college to work the facility will open up shortly thereafter. So around the 8th of June is what I'm understanding as of today.
So on past ribbon cuttings at our water splash pad that we did over there, we managed to talk you into going and getting a little wet in a suit and tie. Are there plans for doing the same thing at this water park?
Well, I'll keep the surprise. We're gonna hold the suspense on that because we think it's a great moment to really bring community members together and to celebrate the facility. So we've got a couple of things we're planning for the grand opening and formally that ribbon cutting. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That's good. I am definitely making sure that I am there so we can determine whether or not this is going to be another let's check out our mayor getting all wet in a suit and tie.
That's right. Yeah.
That I think that the video that I did of that, I got so many views on it of just, oh my gosh, our mayor did that in a suit and tie. I think everybody there, the kids were surprised, and just having that nice interaction. It's great to have a mayor who will just get wet and go play with the kids in the water and just kind of go, so I'm in a suit and tie.
That's right. Well,
this is what the job requires.
We're all a kid at heart, and I felt that day was a moment for us to really celebrate, and it was
really there was a spare of the moment thing. It was just kind of like I'll do it if you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a blast, and there's so many other things to celebrate with the facility, but just having aquatics accomplished in this community was a 20-year effort, right? If not longer. And our city has always had swimming pools, so we deserve to have swimming facilities again. And I've thought over the last couple of years since we haven't had a swimming pool, I know that there are children in our community that haven't got swim lessons, and that bothers me. Now, I don't have children myself, but I've got nieces and nephews who really I get concerned about. I fortunately grew up having swim lessons. My parents prioritized getting me at swim lessons at Lincoln High School or at the city pool, and I know that there are kids that are not getting that opportunity today. So this will finally be a moment of celebration just from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, and are we looking at doing some sort of a scholarship program where if a family cannot afford to have those classes, because I'm sure that there's going to be a cost into it, that we're going to be having if you need assistance, the city's going to provide it, so that way we can make sure that all of our residents can swim and are safe near water.
That's right, and that's a great point you raised, because the one of the main tenets of the whole idea, and the city council affirmed, was it needs to be affordable and it needs to be accessible for everyone in our community. It's a public facility. Our streets don't discriminate on who gets to use them, nor should our aquatic center. And I think we're going to be rolling out some more information on the scholarshiping or the support for folks that have more of a financial need than the general public. Also on rates, all the rates have been set for day and season pass rates within the very near future. In fact, I just signed a contract recently. We're getting the software to be able to take on season pass sales. So we're going to be announcing that so people can come down to City Hall, sign up for their season pass, get their photos taken to their family and their kids, so that way when they show up to the pool, all they have to do is scan their badge and get into the pool.
Awesome. Yeah. That's going to be really great to see. So another topic we have is Veterans Park.
Yeah.
So Veterans Park, so just in case, I want to make sure I'm getting in the right park.
Sure.
So this is the park that is right across, or it's close to Paul Gross Jewelers. So it's right on the river. We've got the West Grand Bridge. So if we were going across the bridge, it's immediately to the right.
Yes.
That is Veterans Park.
Yep. So it's between Jackson and Grand Avenue bridges. You're right.
Okay.
It was the park that was created when the paper company and other philanthropic players in the community in the 80s acquired those buildings and made way for a park to occur in those spaces.
So that has been under construction.
Yep.
So we used to have lunch by the river. Yeah. We moved it across to the river, and now hopefully this year we're going to be coming back to that area. So what updates have we done to Veterans Park?
Sure. Well, all of our riverfront spaces started with a vision, and the vision was in order for our economy to grow, we need to think a little differently about how we approach economic development. And one of the components was our river is underutilized for recreational purposes. It's beautiful to look at, it's beautiful to walk around, run around, or bike around. But we had some opportunities to encourage and to invite people to utilize that river in different and other ways. And one in such way was to protect the riverbank spaces themselves. Wisconsin Rapids is known to flood. It's flooded for 100 and, since existence, right?
Since the dawn of time.
Yeah, right. So way before the Industrial Revolution happened and before our community started building along the river, it was also flooding. And so over the years, the flooding creates major impacts to the riverbank. And so part of the project, a core part of the project, was to stabilize and prevent further erosion of losing our riverbank or riverfront spaces. And so that's why you see new riprap there, a new river wall in some cases. We did some in Veterans Park where you were talking between the two bridges. There's a river wall there that was constructed in the early 1930s. So that infrastructure is nearly 100, if not 100 years older. And so we needed to do some maintenance and repair to it. So at the same time, at the top of the river wall is a railing and a fence. And in much of the river wall, now Veterans was okay in some spaces, but in the next park over where the clock and bell tower is,
Right.
you could literally push the fence out past the river wall. And so if you had a little child or somebody that was unsupervised, you could have lost somebody in through and over the wall and into the river. So we have an obligation as a city to have safe public spaces. And so that was the core area. So protecting the riverfront spaces themselves, the river wall and the riverbank, and then to look at where the safety improvements. So when the park is done, you'll see a whole new river wall railing that meets current code. The previous railing was also out of code. So if you had a small child, again, they could have climbed through.
over. And
so it's unsafe, right? So it was a known situation and we had to address it. So that's the kind of the safety improvements, the ones that are sometimes lost in conversation, but nonetheless important, right? As the renovations that you're wanting to speak about.
Now, we always do Lunch by the River down there, and we have the opportunity. We always have dancers or we have performers down there. Is going to be like a space down there that we have kind of carved out where we have, either a nice chunk of concrete or some sort of space that we can have a nice performance and be able to have, microphones and not have cords running to Holly Rocks and to borrow power from here and borrow power from there. Have we updated some of that so that way we can have a nice system down there where we can have a performance?
That's great. That's a great question. So when we did our public outreach, when we knew we were going to make some improvements to the riverfront spaces, we came to the community over a series of public meetings and said, tell us what you want us to think about incorporating into the spaces. And we got everything right from the community. And it was great because it really validated some of the assumptions we had, that we wanted permanent power provisions, that we wanted maybe not a covered stage there because there had been a battle that was fought on that before, but maybe there was some basic provisions that we could provide for a nice stage. So yes, there will be a stage. Off the top of my head, I don't have the dimensions, but it's wide enough to have a fairly sizable band with multiple instruments set up. And then at the fall of the year, all the power provisions went in. So we've upgraded the entire power of the park. So that way there will be a junction power access box right by the stage. So there's not cords running through the park. There will be there's already new power by the street for the Lunch by the River vendors. There's also new power by the balcony, which we can probably talk about in a minute. And then there's also power on the north end of the park for a lot of the holiday lighting that goes on. So a lot of infrastructure upgrades that, again, are below the surface. People don't necessarily see them, but we want to highlight them because they were associated with the project.
I know that a lot of people have always asked, well, what's going on down there? And we're like, construction.
Yeah.
It's construction.
It's just construction, yeah.
But just knowing those updates, I knew about some of them, but just not all of them. I mean, it's really nice to see that we put in the power so that way we don't have the cords. I've been down there for Lunch by the River for the last, I don't know, probably 15 years. And just knowing how many cords that get drawn out from this point to that point, it'd be nice to have non-tripping hazards for people who are coming to enjoy that.
Right.
So that's going to be a nice, huge benefit for that area.
Another couple of features, when we've been down there for Lunch by the River, we both have probably seen the overflowing garbage cans. Not attractive, right, when you're trying to host events of a large scale. So we'll see more trash receptacles and recycling bins brought to the park, some additional seating, and then all of the walks, both the walks and the trails in the park that was completed last fall, as well as the park, Veterans Park and Mead Rapids View, are now going to be widened so they're recreational trail standard. So they're 8 foot wide. So that way you can have perhaps 2 wheelchairs going in opposite directions, or bicyclists and pedestrians. So that way there's not conflict on that area. I mean, the best success is that the parks become very busy. And we want to make sure that users, whether they're on foot, on bike, or maybe in a wheelchair or using a mobility aid, can get to and from safely. So all of those all of the grades, so the slope of all of the walks are all ADA handicapped accessible.
Which is really nice.
Really important, right?
And we added the walkway underneath the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're coming from the south side of town and you're walking, you can actually now walk underneath the bridge instead of trying to catch the lights up. I'm on the wrong bridge, but we're going to get to that bridge.
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
Yeah, we'll get to that bridge. But we did do some bridge
teaser,
work.
Right?
Yeah, it is a teaser.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I know that we, doing those upgrades to the sidewalks have made just a huge difference. I walk on them quite a bit. I'm looking forward to the snow being away and we can get back out there and walking, which kind of leads into the next one. So we talked about the sidewalks so that way you can walk around. So we actually do have a very nice path connecting all of our bridges now.
We do.
So we can actually start at Veterans Park, go across and walk along the river and then come back around. And this is where I think I'm going to go with the whole entire path underneath the bridge.
Yeah, right.
But there's a park right across from the hospital.
That's right.
And there's like so many cool things I went on during that upgrade into that park, because it was just a kind of a blah green space. And now it's like a super cool, really nice, usable space where we have the outdoor fitness center.
That's right.
So that's kind of really neat that we could do the bridge to bridge walk and then stop and do the outdoor fitness center along the walk to connect it, because we do now have that nice path along First Street. Is it First or Second?
First Street.
First Street. That was really nice. I know walking
and
on that
first and
path.
Third, actually. Yep.
Yeah, that path we're walking on there. I had a couple times where it's just like, we need something here because it's not safe to walk on.
Yeah, that's right.
So I really have appreciated that, and it's a beautiful walk yet too on top of it.
Well, it's been a real priority for us in the sense that a lot of cities plan around the automobile or trucks or just vehicles in general. And as trends go and as preferences change and as time progresses, people want to be more active, and that's not just young people. That's not older folks. I mean, it's everyone, right? Everyone. And I went for a run the other night, and it was chilly. I was trying to get myself out and get through this winter blues and just catch spring, the moments of spring we've got. And it was amazing to see. I was probably the youngest person on the trail, and it was encouraging to me to see so many older folks active and engaged, because we know that the key to aging in place, that being able to stay in your home and living in a community you grew up in and not having to move maybe to family in another place for care, is the ability to be out physically active and to be able to socialize and to see small groups of people walking together, even with walking sticks or canes. It was really impressive. And it warms my heart to see that, some people mischaracterize and say, well, it's just for those young people. Actually, I found it's just the opposite, that more folks that are using the trail system are older folks on a daily basis.
I know I do my walk early in the morning. So 6 a.m., I'll go do my walk. So it's a 4-mile walk. So if I leave my home and I walk all the way down and I do the bridge to bridge and I come back home, it's a 4-mile loop, which is really awesome. But even at 6 a.m., down at this particular park, there's people down there.
Yeah.
There was some group doing yoga, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person up at this hour. Because normally I would do my walk by myself. I'm like, I could actually join a yoga group at 6 a.m. down by the river, and it's beautiful. You watch the sunrise.
Right.
And then yet on top of it, you do have there's 6 stations, right?
That's right, 6 fitness stations.
So, and it's really great. They have different levels. So if you're, brand new at it and you just want to like ease into it, it tells you what you should be doing, gives you pictures, which is really nice. And then it just kind of increases in difficulty.
That's right.
So it was even really nice. I mean, I think there was like 6 guys down there all rotating through the stations, doing their workout, doing their own thing. We got the yoga going over there. I'm like, it's 6 a.m. in Wisconsin Rapids, and this park is busy.
Isn't it amazing? Someone came up to me and I'm a user of the system, so it's great for me to be able to get some reflection on what's working and not working when I try to walk the shoes of every one of our residents to the extent possible. And one of the residents came up to me and said, I canceled my gym membership. Now, the gyms may not like us because they're able to work out outside, but it was a great validation. I mean, I've joked with folks, to your point about sunrise and sunset. There is no better place to catch a sunset and maybe even a sunrise than Demet's Park now, because we've created spaces for people to enjoy it right at the base of the river. Now, you've got the expressway and a little bit of traffic, but as the trees start taking hold, we lost a lot of trees last summer in the windstorm on that park, but we've replanted, and we're going to be replanting more this coming year. But it really is reassuring that people want public spaces that are more than just green space. They want to be able to use them. They want to interact with them. They want to socialize in them. And so hopefully when we're done with this project, whether it's getting an active workout, the yoga, I mean, that's an economic development story, right? I don't know wherever that instructor was doing yoga before, but now they're able to use a city park in a beautiful space.
And she had everything in the back of her truck.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I mean, I purposely went through that park and I'm like, okay, I got to see what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, to be nosy. I want to see what's going on. And yeah, she had everything that she needed for yoga in the back of her truck.
Yep.
She started her class and everyone grabbed what they needed and they did yoga down there.
That's
I'm
amazing.
Like, this is what the city wanted. This is their vision. They wanted to see this happen. So for it said 6 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
like not exactly sure if the time frame works with everybody.
Yeah, right.
But being able to have that of a nice, peaceful, quiet area to be able to do that. And it's gorgeous down there.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
it was not a very pretty park to begin with. It was just blah.
Yeah, very passive green
Right.
space, and that's great. But I think our community members, as we talked, are
And I think
expecting
more ducks were down there, more geese were down there than people.
than people. I would agree.
But
yeah.
with all the new improvements with the different flowers that you guys have planted, and I love the fact that they're labeled. I'm a huge labeler.
Sure.
If I could label everything, I would. But
people want to know what that stuff is, right?
Right.
Whether it's the fitness stations or whether it's the shade structure. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that you've got to inform the public.
Right.
So that
Well,
way they
I
can
mean, just
engage.
even people like me who are just kind of curious, they see the flowers bloom in someone's yard, and I'm like, oh, I really wish I could get that for my yard.
Yeah.
And with it not being labeled, you're like, oh, but now I can't get it. But down there at the park, all the flowers are labeled. I mean, I really thought that was really something. It's a unique feature to it. You guys are really thinking about, okay, if someone really did enjoy this, they can go and they can take it and they can bring it back to their house as well. So I always enjoy telling newcomers to the Rapids, hey, we got this outdoor fitness center.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, we have a what?
Yeah.
Because even people who've been here for years, they saw the construction, but I don't think they've really fully understood. We have a fitness center.
That's right.
It's outdoors and it's year round too. So again, we're kind of going on. You're doing really good about making sure that everything is year round.
Yeah.
Because even in the middle of winter, you
Yeah.
can still go down there. You
That's
can
right.
still do the workout.
Yep.
You may be doing it in negative 20-degree weather,
Yeah.
but you could still do it.
Yep, we plow many of the paths because we know, well, someone J.R. Siewert and others are always active in the winter. They're maybe training for marathons or training for other events, and it's encouraging to be able to keep these folks active outdoors.
My son lives up in Eau Claire, and that's the one thing when he does his winter runs, he's like, I make sure I know where the road, everything is clean, that
Yep.
I stay on the paths where the city actually takes care of it.
That's
He's
right.
like, I don't want to get injured. I don't want to fall. I don't want to slip on the ice. And very appreciative of Eau Claire doing that. And I'm very appreciative of Rapids doing that as well, of making sure that we can, as a community, still have that fitness throughout the seasons.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, and obviously time will tell how much the community adapts and evolves and makes something out of these great spaces. It's all about programming, and it's great to see even in its first year, some of these spaces already being programmed.
And we
by
have
our
some grills
residents.
down there, so if you wanted to have a family picnic,
That's right.
there are some grills down there. We do have the picnic tables, so there is space. There is still options out there. It's not just for one thing. It's not just for fitness. It's you can have your family down there and enjoying that canoe launch that's down there.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't talk about some of those other features, right? I think that was an observation we made was if folks want to have a picnic, they really have to picnic everything in. And for some reason, the city, for one reason or another, I'm not sure why, but we had like 1 or 2 grills in our entire expanse of city parks along the river.
Yep.
And, you go to a county park, go to a state park, there's grills everywhere, right? So why not create some grill space for residents to be able to have a family gathering or an afternoon picnic in our beautiful parks?
Yes, which was a great option to have. All right, so our final topic is going to be the airport.
Sure.
Now, we did a lot of renovation. I believe we had a $4 million grant. I'm not sure if it was a grant,
Yep.
but we spent $4 million on updating our airport. And I think it has gone a little bit more. We've added a new hangar,
Yep.
from my understanding.
Yeah.
So where is our airport sitting, and now what can we do with our airport?
Well, it really fits the airport in general. Thinking more broadly, we have so many assets in our community, right? And they're only assets if we figure out ways to continue to capitalize and leverage them as assets. Otherwise, they become liabilities, right? The opposite of an asset is a liability. And so our airport was one of those enterprises or pieces of infrastructure or an asset that had been kind of sleepy in more recent years. Now, early in its days, it was very active and served a huge economic development purpose. And over the years, it continued to do so for generally the paper industry and other manufacturers that would use it. Now, of course, there's flight instruction and charter aircraft activities out of there. But when Sand Valley came to the community, we kind of learned early on that many of their customers, or much of their golf play, came via private aircraft. And we all kind of looked at each other at the airport commission, of which I'm chairman. We said, we've got to figure out what this means for us.
Right.
Because like any smart business, and having my limited business experience as a small business owner over the years, before I became mayor, we knew that business activity could go anywhere, right? There were options. People could go to Stevens Point. They could still use our airfield, but there wasn't a lot of capacity there. They could use Adams County, maybe even, Mosinee. There are other options. And we felt that it was a unique opportunity for us to mobilize and tell a story that Wisconsin's and Rapids' economy and the community's economy is transitioning, right? One that's from dependent on one single industry, the paper industry in a single company or just a few companies, to one that's a little more diverse, right? That serves economic development and tourism in different ways, hospitality, other manufacturing and food processing. So we put together a story, and that we means the business community, the airport commission, the airport manager who we ended up hiring early on in the process, recognizing that we needed a professional on site that was not also running their business and being pulled in too many directions.
Right.
And so we put together a story, and that story was 20-some page document that we prepared for the state legislature and said, we have an opportunity to transition and improve the local economy in the Wisconsin Rapids area. We've been hit hard over the years by downsizings and plant layoffs and plant closures, and we need to do something about that. And so the airport was one success story, right? So in the budget process, as you said, there was $4 million that was earmarked for improvements at Alexander Field.
So improvements as far as the runways or the buildings, new fencing, or is it just kind of like a broad, here's $4 million?
Great question.
Good.
Yeah.
Go spend.
Yeah, we put together a priority list.
Okay.
We put as much in there as we could imagine at the time, right? Because we didn't know to the extent of what was really coming at us, other than we did spend some time. We went out to Bandon, Oregon, which is the similar twin sister maybe of the Sand Valley project, the same developers. And there's a small airport there that also serves that golf course. And while that's a little bit different because in Washington, Oregon, in Bandon Dunes, Oregon, they're a little more remote than what we are. I mean, we have interstate highways between us. There's not a lot of terrain. We're pretty flat. We actually drove from Portland down to Bandon Dunes, and it was a 4-hour drive winding through the mountains. And so you could just tell how difficult it was to get to that golf course. So ours is quite a bit easier, but nonetheless important for the folks, the users that are players out at the course, who have the resources to be able to fly in on their own. So in our list of priorities, we knew that our runways couldn't get any longer, but they were in a situation with their age that we needed to do some improvements. So one of the things was, just like we would do to a street, take the top surface off and put a new surface over the tops to give us more life on that particular runway.
Now, when you took off the old one, were you able to upgrade that so that way we can get bigger planes landing here in Rapids, or does that still have like a distance thing? Because we all know that a plane needs to have so many feet in order to land and take off.
Exactly.
But also the concrete itself is important too, to make sure that when these planes land, it can actually take the abuse that a plane is going to be giving it. So
that's a great question, because these planes aren't light, right?
These are not light planes.
Are heavy, but because these planes are very heavy.
Right.
So that runway was built at a time and a standard that concrete is so thick that we knew we didn't want to fully replace it, because the FAA, the Federal Aeronautics Administration or Aviation Administration, was not going to allow us to rebuild it. With its current width. It would actually get narrower.
Really?
So we said consciously, let's just do a maintenance project versus a reconstruction. So the concrete is of certain thickness that it's able to sustain the aircraft that we take out there, but it is really a function of length of the runway, as well as there's some things called minimums, and that's how when a plane starts descending and landing, how quickly it can get from point A to point B in an elevation basis. And so that's why preceding this project, we did a lot of tree trimming and tree cutting, and it wasn't popular, but we were faced with you're either going to close your airport or we're going to take away certain classifications of types of aircraft you could have, or you're going to trim your trees. And so it was the conscious decision, of course, to do that.
Trim the trees is the easiest one, just to maintain that. And I think that is very helpful, so that way we can get some of those people who are traveling. I mean, you look at what St. Valley is bringing in, but also because of the classification that we have, we can also attract a few other people who are going to be coming in.
That's right.
So
having clean approaches, and that's a project actually that we're undertaking going forward, is something that we need to, over the next 5 years, ensure that those approaches don't get impeded again by trees. I love the tree next to, like the next person, and we want to make sure we're planning for the eventual trimming of trees as they grow older and grow taller. Some of the other improvements out at the airfield, so the runway, we talked about the resurfacing of the runway. We also added capacity for parking, so basically a larger parking lot for aircraft. You can't park a car like you can't park an airplane like you park a car, where you can put them nose to nose.
Right.
You can do it if people are staying for a long period of time. They kind of do it at EAA and some other big fly-ins. But when you've got large aircraft that are coming and going at different times, there's a certain configuration in which you can park those things. And our apron, the parking lot at the airport, was undersized for the size of aircraft that we get on a peak day. Now, we knew that we also had to plan for some expansion there as well. We weren't getting another $4 million from the state to do some of this work anytime soon. So we needed to make sure that we were efficient in how we spent that money. So part of it was growing the apron to a point where we could have, let's say, Sand Valley, or there was other events happening in addition to some of the Sand Valley activity, that we could accommodate as many aircraft as possible. So how many aircraft can we handle? Well, it's really dependent on how many of each size, because their wingspans are shorter and different. Yeah. The other improvement that you mentioned the hangar, and that's a really important project from the standpoint of a lot of these large aircraft who have to leave because their insurance does not want their planes to be out in the elements. Hailstorms, windstorms, right? We saw a windstorm last summer, and the aircraft that were there really spun around, and fortunately there weren't any major damages or any of that kind of thing.
That's good.
But hangars are the precaution, right? Just like a car garage for your vehicle. And so that's the other improvement that's happening out there right now. But when you mentioned $4 million, all told, there were a number of other projects. We upgraded all the lighting around the facility. So our utility bills are just nothing compared to what they used to be. All LED lighting, far more efficient, more reliable. There were a lot of times where our lighting went out over the course of winter, just faulty wiring over time, just like electricity in your house or electrical in your house. And then we also made some improvements to improve what they call circulation. So like a street, if you've got a couple turn lanes in that, if traffic is not moving right, you do things to improve traffic, right? You may put in some lights that give you a left turn arrow in that. Well, at the airport, it's about how planes get from that apron, that parking lot, to a taxiway to the runway. And so we added a taxiway along the entire length. So that way, on the occasion that we've got flights coming in at the same time as planes are taking off, that they're not sitting on an active runway with a plane coming over the top.
Yeah. So coordinating our takeoff, our landings and taking off, is there someone who's staffed at the airport 24/7, or is this a pilots know what they're supposed to be doing, so they do their checklist of what they should be doing? Do we have that?
It's a great question.
Are we able to staff 24/7?
Air traffic control, right? Yeah. How are we doing that? So all the airspace is regulated by the federal government.
Right.
And so they're communicating between Minneapolis or Green Bay or Mosinee or wherever the airspace that they're coming in through. So there's not somebody physically based at the airport for the takeoff and landing for that purpose. But you can, if you're sitting at the airport, we've got the loudspeaker there. You can hear the operations.
Okay.
They're announcing that because there's grounds crew. We need to get our staff ready. So when they pull up, we're ready to fuel them. We're ready to take the lavatory. We've got lav carts. We take all the bio stuff from the airplanes, and then baggage handling and all that type of thing. So there isn't anybody based that's kind of organizing that, but that's done by the federal government in the nearby communities.
Are we looking at getting big enough where we actually need to have a tower and be staffed, or are we just kind of happy at we're happy at where we're at?
We won't be making that decision. That'd be a federal government decision, and we're probably never going to get there. I think we don't have the scheduled commercial operations, right, like you'd see with the mainline airlines. But that's also a question I get is,
but we're never going to be like the next Mosinee. We're just going to still stay our little hometown airport.
Yeah,
that just handles lots of big cool things.
Yeah, there are some growth opportunities. But again, no, because the commercially serviced airports were so close to the nearby airport that for an airline to add another offshoot or an air traffic control tower very, very slim to probably not likely in maybe my lifetime. But the other thing is I do get asked a lot, well, what about scheduled service? Well, we see a scheduled service to Chicago or Denver or Minneapolis or Detroit. And out in Bandon, they were able to recruit United to do a very limited schedule. Like a plane comes on Tuesday and leaves, and then a plane comes on Thursday and leaves. So
if I need to catch a plane to go down to Chicago to catch my flight to Florida, can I fly out of Rapids versus driving up to Mosinee and have to have my car sit for a whole entire week while I'm down vacationing, when it can just be at home?
Right, and more or less for the inbound traffic. So those that are golfers and visitors, instead of using commercial or private activity, they could use commercial. So I don't think that's not on the near-term horizon, but as Sand Valley adds a third course and beyond, well, there's a lot more golf play that's going to happen, and where are those folks going to come here from? Is it by car? Is it by airplane? And they had predicted that 30% of the golfers, the golf rounds that are sold, would come from air traffic, and it's at least that.
Are we seeing a lot more use of the taxi system to get from Rapids to Rome? Are we seeing some of that, or is it?
Sure.
I'm not sure how that all works, because you fly into Rapids, but you're playing in Sand Valley, which is 12 miles away. How are those golfers getting from point A to point B and then back again? And what are our pilots doing? Are they just kind of hanging out in the airport? Do we have a cool lounge for them, or are they just kind of hanging out at the local restaurants and trying to figure out how to? I got to hang out for the next 10 hours while my people are off playing.
It depends. Some of them overnight when they're staying at the Mead or another hotel. Some of them are just coming in at 8 and they're leaving at 6 at night or 8 at night. But in that period of time, we've got to keep them occupied. So they're not sitting in the pilot's lounge all day. Now, we did upgrade the lounge, add some better, comfortable recliners and
but
some
not
more
that
provisions.
comfortable.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't know. I wouldn't spend 8 hours there personally. But I'll tell you, bike share has been a question. These guys, because they sit in their cockpit, they want to be out active too. So they've actually thought about biking along
and
the
a
river.
lot of the new improvements that we made to the city feeds right on into that.
It's an interesting dynamic. But definitely restaurants, I would say also that folks are, they're just looking for other things to do. So they're picking up the visitor's guide. They might be maybe making a run out to the cheese factory. But as it relates to their transportation, we actually provide our pilots with a free courtesy car.
Okay.
So they're able to take the courtesy car and run around to the local area, which is always a very interesting thing, because instead of renting a car in pilot in the aviation world, it's very common to have crew cars or pilot cars available for people to use. It's just kind of a, here are the keys, sign it out and go. It's an incredibly trusting type of thing. And so that tradition continues at Alexander Field here in Rapids.
And that is really neat to even find out, because you barely put a little thought to it. I mean, you hear a lot of times, the pilots come in, but they come in and then they leave on those bigger airports because they're just picking up the next people and shuttling to the next place.
Right.
So knowing that there's cars available for them, so the way they're not just stuck at a small airport
all
of
day.
just waiting for people to get over with, their golf done and then go back home.
That's right. But most of the there's actually been a couple of transportation companies that have popped up to take golfers to the resort. Sand Valley does not itself run any transportation, so they work with partners, and that's been a nice new business opportunity for people in our community as well. I see, they're always investing in new vans and larger equipment to take people down to play some golf and spend some leisure time.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, very good.
Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you enjoyed
Hard to believe our time is up already.
I know. It goes by so quickly.
It does. Well, thanks again for the opportunity. It's really an exciting time for our community for these reasons and many others, right? We could spend hours talking about them, but
we really could. And we wanted to keep it small and kind of keep it a little bit simple. So hopefully we can come back later on in the year. We'll have you back. I mean, you're always welcome to come back.
Sounds good, Carrie. Thank
you.
All right. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And you guys all have a great Central Wisconsin day. Bye-bye.